So from Vinay and whomever wants to jump on this first, second, and third, did you all notice the defense's vulnerability to Jack Miller's backside RPO? Should we be worried by that scheme, or are they fixing that defensively? Now, did this happen time and time and time again?
Well, this is coming from a clip of practice earlier this week where, depending on the read, you could argue that, and it's a clip of Jack Miller throwing just a quick RPO to, I believe, Garrett Wilson, who scores a touchdown between a backup corner and a backup safety of Ronnie Hickman. I assume a backup corner. But anyway, so it's Vinay is calling it a backside read. It's kind of what it looks like what Penn State did to Ohio State last year. Our guy Ross Fulton is saying maybe it's not a backside read and it's reading that safety initially. And so if that's the case, now you've got a read that is probably inaccurate because he's throwing into double coverage, and yet the coverage still doesn't get there. So I think it's almost a 2-for-1. This is bad, where you've got a quarterback making a bad read and the defense not being able to get there. Now the quarterback makes the throw and the catch is made and he scored. But yeah, it's one clip of practice. It's a really strong throw, but is it the right read? I don't know. But it's an example of what Jack Miller can do, and he's been the third guy in this from the perspective of a lot of people, I think. And does he have an Ohio State arm? I think you saw there, but it's a lot more than just the arm, as Brian Day keeps saying. He wants leadership out of that position as well.
That's like the play in North Dallas 40 where they improvise and the ball goes off the defense and for the touchdown, and the guy playing Tom Landry, not called Tom Landry, but it's obvious that's who it is. So asked Mac Davis, the quarterback, what do you call that play? And he said a touchdown, and it cracked up the entire room. And then he brought him back to reality that, that's fine, but, none of you are smarter than that computer. And, and this, to see some of the stuff that is so intricate about the passing attack that Ohio State has, somebody who was defending Justin Fields and his slow progression reads knock that has come out from, whoever media are trying to, torpedo his chance to go in the top 3 or 4 picks. Just take a look at it was posted on Twitter, just what he's seeing and what the reads are and how intricate this thing is. And, Kevin brought up in our chat here, we can talk about the NCAA versus the Supreme Court thing, which has bubbled up today. There's a court case in the Supreme Court. And you think about the time management of these guys to be able to go to class, get their workouts in, study this playbook that is NFL caliber playbook, and get it down pat to where there's never a blown play. I mean, if there is, it's like one a game at the most, is nothing short of amazing to me, the dedication that these guys have. And you have to have it, because if not, the sophisticated defense on the other side is going to take you apart. So to me, I'm astounded by some of the things that I'm seeing and hearing about how intricate this offense is. And in regards to his question, do I worry about it from the defensive side of the ball? No, because it's spring football, and they are showing them looks to put them in bad positions so that they learn what it takes to make the proper read, make the proper play, etc. So this is the time where you want to illustrate and where you want to bring that out for the defense and teach. I mean, this is what spring football is all about.
Right. If you sit there and, 2 points I want to make on this, let's say that they're doing 70 plays of 11 on 11 or whatever, and they put one play out there, and, we're so – as a beat, and I think if you take it into a wider stance in terms of just Ohio State interest, we're so starved for information that every single player that is in frame on there is being dissected to every little move that they've made. So, Jerry Emig, if you're listening, please let us into a practice so we have some more stuff to to dilute the discussion a little bit. But I mean, it's a play. It's one play that they put out there in a social media tweet or whatever. You know, I guarantee you they probably kind of watched the play before they put it out there. I wouldn't get too concerned about one play. It's kind of like back in the early recruiting days when I started at Rivals, and we would get whole game tapes sent in of high school prospects, and it was our job to kind of cut it down into highlights. I'm like, you give me 15 minutes of video, I could turn a 2-star into a 5-star. I mean, just based on what I'm putting out there. So, I think there's a little bit of a forced perspective there too. So I wouldn't be concerned about any one play that I'm seeing in terms of the entirety of what the upcoming 21 season is going to be.
Yeah. One play of one practice of 2 months of practice, because they consider fall camp to be just a continuation of spring camp. So it's just a glimpse and a drop in the bucket, basically. But eventually they need to stop it.
Yeah, certainly. Just we're so void of information coming out of spring practice, and college football fans are so hypersensitive, critical of their team and what they would like to see, and the expectations that any little bit of information, if a quarterback who's battling for the position, it leaks out through a red zone interception, well, he's not the guy. We latch onto that a little bit too heavily. Cheryl alluding to this, and just to piggyback on something that Steve said, just to put a cap on the Justin Fields conversation. And I saw this actual tweet, I think, coming from Tony yesterday. I don't think there was any question that yesterday's pro day confirmed that, Justin Fields, he locks in on those receivers. There's no question about that.
Didn't look at a second receiver all day yesterday.
Didn't happen. Didn't happen at all. I was waiting to see that out of him, and he just didn't show it. But from the physical standpoint side, on a serious note, did that just confirm everything we already knew, or was he even more outstanding than was thought?
I mean, I was impressed with everything that I saw there. I mean, he made the throws I expected him to make, and I guess it comes into what your image and what your thoughts of Justin Fields were going into the day. I mean, we've seen him, all of us on this show right now have seen him play 2 years at Ohio State and have seen him make those throws in game action. So, with that being said, there wasn't a ton of surprise for me that he was making it. He's a good kid. I've had the opportunity to talk to him for a couple of years, even going back to when he was a recruit. So, you like to see these kids that you like do well, but I wouldn't say that I was extremely surprised. I think that there are going to be the people out there that, some people just don't like Ohio State, and by extension of that, are not going to like Ohio State athletes. And there is a radio guy out there that played for the U that has been just dumping all over Justin Fields. I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not going to give him the pleasure of that. But I mean, I think that in some ways it just almost seems like just petty garbage when it comes out there. But Twitter's not making these draft picks. The talking head shows aren't making those draft picks. We're not making the draft picks. You only have to wow one team. And just from the gasps and the applause that we kind of heard during the throws that he was making, I think he was impressing people.
All right,
he's the prototype. Nothing he does can surprise me. Like if he took flight, I'd be like, yep, he looks like he could fly. Like if he walked through a wall, I believe that now. I mean, he's the best at Ohio State. He's the best Ohio State has ever had. So he should, look good.
But Ohio State quarterbacks have never been successful in the league, so therefore, due to the transitive property or whatever, Justin Fields is going to flop, right?
Yeah, and I mentioned that on Twitter today. With you already have Philadelphia and Miami looking to move on from their Alabama quarterbacks, and nobody brings that up when it comes to Mac Wilson or Mac Jones's, future endeavors as an NFL quarterback. It's funny how that happens.
Mark, we were doing a call yesterday with Justin Fields afterward, and one of the national reporters or somebody from somewhere said, well, what do you speak to the lack of Ohio State quarterbacks who've done very well in the NFL draft? Well, First of all, Justin Fields is not from Ohio. He's from Georgia. He's been at Ohio State for 2 years. And other than Dwayne Haskins, who he maybe kind of halfway knew in passing, he really doesn't know any of the previous quarterbacks who played at Ohio State. Maybe they've stopped back and said hello or whatever, or introduced themselves. But, to ask him a question about the history of the quarterback position at Ohio State would be like asking me, a question about quantum physics. I'm just not going to have much of an answer for you. And didn't even take a physics course in college, so I wouldn't, have much of an opinion on it. So he's left to sit there and defend himself, and basically was saying, well, I don't even really know any of those guys or what the history here has been or anything like that. It was wasted time on a call with Justin Fields about something that is completely irrelevant, because other than Dwayne Haskins, none of them, really worked directly with Ryan Day. So, JT Barrett did for 1 year, but I don't think there's anybody out there who is of a mind belief that he's a franchise NFL quarterback. So, the whole thing is just completely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the practical application, Steve, is the route you're going is, can we make a connection between the current system, the current coaches, and what's going on, who's being developed, as you guys discussed concerning Michigan and now Ohio State at the quarterback position, versus just what's the legacy, which is fun to talk about, and you can come up with lists and so forth. But, Alabama developing Kenny Stabler, Joe Namath, and Bart Starr in the 50s and 60s isn't really relevant to today. Since then, it's been quite the dry spell at Alabama.
I did like Ryan Day was asked, how well do you think Justin Fields is prepared for the stuff in the NFL that you guys don't do at Ohio State, that you don't prepare him for, that you don't, the stuff that you don't throw in? And he's like, we do everything the NFL does. And that's another thing that's kind of been out there. Like, Dwayne Haskins never learned this or was never shown this, and Justin Fields hasn't been shown this. And Day's like, no, we do everything that the NFL does. And this is a guy who has been in the NFL for years, brought that to Ohio State and brought the Ohio State offense, the passing offense especially, into modern football. And it was just interesting to try to hear somebody like put the assertion out there and then say, well, how's he going to handle that now that you guys clearly haven't prepared him for what he's going to actually see in the NFL. And Day has really taken, I don't know if offense to all of this Justin Fields stuff is, but he's certainly very supportive of Fields and very confident that Fields is going to be just fine in the NFL, and does not like the armchair football scouts talking badly about his quarterback for reasons, as he said, like they hear somebody else watch it. Somebody else watches like 2 minutes of film, and then the other guys parrot those people, and he didn't have any time for them.
And that's what it is, especially in this day and age where everybody's got a media platform in their hand, and it just gets parroted. Exactly right.